When was the last time you thought about empathy as a leadership skill? It's such an important aspect to the work that we do. This week, I had the opportunity to speak with STEM undergraduate students about human-centered design thinking and how it all begins with empathy and a bit of curiosity. The topic we were talking about was leading innovation, yet it's not just suited for thinking about product design or product development. Human-centered design, starting with empathy and curiosity, can be used for process design, leadership opportunities, development discussions, and even to help us introverts as we network. Staying curious can be a superpower. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about how we can use empathy and curiosity as we build relationships and lead through a very complex world. Thank you for joining. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to The Rooted Leader. Hi, I'm Kathleen Wise-Mandel. I'm a scientist, leader for over 20 years, and now a leadership coach. I created the short leadership minisodes that meet busy leaders where they are, offering insight, reflection, and questions that support growth in the flow of your work. You can think of it as your own mini personal coaching session. Thank you for being here. The idea of human-centered design thinking started with David and Tom Kelly, brothers, who founded IDEO. IDEO is a human-centered design organization, and they refer to themselves as differentiated by understanding people better than anyone else, whether it's their customers or users or slices of a generation. And they believe in finding confidence in being creative and seeking the potential of the unknown. Find creative confidence in seeking the potential of the unknown. David Kelly went on to form the Stanford Design School, affectionately known as the D School. And they have a mission of using design to help students and professionals develop their creative capacity to leave the world a better place than they found it. It's pretty incredible. In their book, Creative Confidence, Tom and David Kelly wanted us to find the potential in thinking more creatively and how it can be a superpower for so many things, not limited to only product development. IDEO is not only famous for creating the exceptional Apple mouse back in the 1980s, but they continue to work with companies like Ford Motor Company, Sephora, and Moderna to help not only spark new ideas, but to continue to build a culture of curiosity. They wanted to show that creativity and imagination are so important in tackling the difficult problems that we face in our current environment, and to find the courage to make a difference in the world and inspire us to come up with breakthrough ideas in ways that we can not only improve products, but also the lives of everyday people. Design thinking is a process, and it begins with empathy. Empathy in learning about what others need, not just based on our own assumptions. It begins with empathy in forming a true problem statement, and then allowing us to think about different ideas that could address that problem statement, allowing us to test it out and prototyping how that might work, and then testing with real users. It's an iterative cycle. Empathy can be a start for so many great things, and understanding the true needs of patients and humans. I like it because I find the true problems experienced by others. It allows us to get input right away. We're not fully committed to one solution until we get a sense of, is this what people need? And it's the heart of innovation. At its core is empathy. Empathy and curiosity, they help us build more comfort in the spaces that we feel every day. This world is so uncertain. I like to remind people about the VUCA world. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, and it's ambiguous. And by being curious, we can learn the changing needs of people and environments and keep us inspired. David Kelly, the founder of IDEO and the Stanford D School, is actually an engineer. And he was saying in a podcast I was listening to that while his technical skills are what's needed to create the engineering solution, he believes that design thinking is so essential for him and his colleagues to stay inspired about what's really needed and what can really be disruptive. Not just small tweaks on current solutions, but things that really change the game, like Netflix went from a mail-in DVD business to one where streaming and user algorithms help define the way we view entertainment today. You can't do that without knowing what really is needed by your users, your clients, and your consumers. I've experienced the same thing in my career in pharmaceutical development, as well as leadership coaching. I really want to meet my team members, my stakeholders, and my clients where they need me. Not every model works for every client, and getting to know them initially is so important to inform how we work together. So the first thing with human-centered design is that it helps us empathize with the user. And as a leader, it helps us empathize with not only our colleagues, it helps us empathize and understand the needs of our team members or employees. It helps us understand and empathize the needs of the greater system, or in the case of the work I did, patients. It helps us connect to understand the needs, desires, and motivations of those stakeholders. And building creative confidence is where we can actually see that potential more clearly. So as we gain confidence in thinking more creatively, it becomes just part of who we are. So how does this equate to leadership? Well, I like to use it as a way for me to discover the needs of each individual person and what matters to them. Again, we're focusing on needs, desires, and motivations. And I use the example of when I was in pharma during COVID. We really had to understand the needs, desires, and motivations of multiple stakeholders at a time that things were moving and changing very quickly. As a leader, I could see that my users at the time were my employees, and so much of their world was changing. Everyone was at home. Some had to homeschool their children. Others were concerned for parents or elderly health during the COVID. Some may have had immunosuppressive needs and had to be very careful themselves. And then there were the time issues. How do we do our work when we're not all on the same time schedule? It required me to consider what their needs were. And what were the needs of the business? What were the motivations at that time for everyone? And how might we make information a little more visible even if we had people working at different times throughout the globe? And how might this inform what they needed to be successful? How I could be flexible for them in my leadership style, and also in offering them options for being successful. At that time, it wasn't about everyone had to do the same thing. It was how did we move the needle, get the studies done, meet the needs of our employees so they weren't burning out, and also getting patients the medicine they needed. It keeps us curious, and honestly, it feels pretty good to know that you can understand someone, listen to them without judgment, and then take stock in what you're learning and see if there are themes and patterns across stakeholders, across colleagues, and across the systems that you're working in. It also helps us question our own assumptions, which can be really hard when we're working in very fast-paced environments. But it's important. If we come in thinking we know the answer, it's really going to break down our empathy. As I mentioned, the Kelly brothers call this creative confidence, building this muscle for being creative in the way of seeking what we don't know. One of my favorite researchers, Albert Bandura, called this self-efficacy. And in the spirit of our Season 1, Episode 1 on growth mindset, Carol Dweck focuses on our ability to have a flexible mindset. And that's really needed during these uncertain times. And all require courage. It's not easy to go into a situation asking questions. But if we really want to seek out more creative solutions, we need to have the belief that courage is necessary. Another source that I really love is the podcast Think Fast, Talk Smart. And it's from the Stanford Graduate School of Business. The Kelly brothers call it the B School for Business instead of the D School for Design. The episode Choose Connection Over Perfection is a really great episode. It has so many great things. But at the 13-minute mark, which I'll include in the show notes, they begin to talk about a seesaw metaphor for connection with others. And I thought it was brilliant. It starts out with being curious. As you meet someone, you begin with asking a question. And it's a question based on curiosity and wanting to know something that doesn't necessarily benefit me, but might benefit them or make them feel good. Maybe it's a coworker, not showing what you know, but just being curious to learn more about them. And then actively listening, engaging them. And that opportunity to feel seen and heard can be incredibly powerful. This can be also really useful if someone comes to you with a problem that you don't have an answer for. Start with curiosity. Ask them questions about why it's important for them, why it's important for others. Then they may ask you a question. Imagine that seesaw or teeter-totter, and it starts to create this connection between the two of you, and it goes back and forth. I just thought it was a really nice way for building relations, especially for those of us coming into situations where we need to show that we have knowledge and that we have credibility. It's also possible to show empathy and curiosity. So, 3 takeaways for today. One is that empathy and curiosity are the keys to relationship building and leadership. And they're also important in understanding user needs for either processes, products, or services. 2, they allow us to see opportunities to address the needs, desires, and motivations of our employees, our team members, our colleagues, stakeholders, and it even works with family members. Even as parents, we don't always have to know the answer. Coming in with a question can really open up the conversation. And 3, design thinking is an iterative process. And so we have to consider multiple points of view, opportunities where we might gain information and change our perspective, and where we're asking more than we're telling. The next time you're in a meeting, determine if anyone is asking questions or if they're all just sharing points of view. Possibly offer a few questions up for the group to consider from a place of curiosity. And if you are a new leader, or a new manager, or a new employee, build comfort in sharing your voice by asking a few questions out of curiosity. Remember, curiosity is not knowledge sharing. Both can be present, but leading with curiosity can build trust. So now reflection. If you can pause between each question and write down your response, that's fantastic. Think of it as your own personal mini coaching session. I want you to reflect as it relates to your leadership style. When you're speaking with your colleagues or team members, how often do you start with a curious question? Are you in an environment where you have the opportunity to show a little vulnerability and curiosity? Or are you always trying to be an approved mindset? How could you build in more questions during your next one-on-one meetings with stakeholders or team members in order to listen, learn, and engage with your colleagues? Maybe it's the same question you start with every time. That's okay. How might you benefit from knowing the needs and motivations of your colleagues or team members? How about the needs and motivations for your family members? Are you willing to try this with 2 to 3 people per week? Maybe your traditional meetings, you can build in a curious question at the beginning. And after you complete that meeting, I want you to reflect. How did that make you feel? Did you learn anything different? And how do you think that other person felt? And lastly, I'd like you to think of a leader who made you feel seen. How did they do that? How did they learn about what you were thinking and what was important to you? How did that person change how you might see leadership? In closure, the idea of using design thinking for leadership seems maybe a little odd, but once you get into the habit of it, is really opening up a dialogue and creating psychological safety for an exchange of information that does help drive the work that you do every day. You not only learn the needs and motivations of your team members, you might even find better fits for the work they're doing, new opportunities for their development, and hopefully you're gathering information that helps you lead your team more effectively and continue to build strong relationships. Thank you for joining the Rooted Leader podcast. You'll find links and resources in the show notes. And if you'd like to share a thought or a question for a future episode, you can email me at therootedleaderpodcast@gmail.com or reply directly on the Rooted Leader Substack. Follow or subscribe to the Rooted Leader podcast so you don't miss a future episode. Until next time, stay rooted in empathy and authenticity. Thank you so much.